What's your theory? I know we're just speculating here, but what makes more sense to you?
Well, method, method, a motive, method, and opportunity in a crime. Who had the motive to take out Charlie Kirk in such a surgical fashion? Now, again, this is just me. This is just me looking at all the facts. I looked at his speeches before the event happened. Charlie had just come out, and he made a pretty dramatic statement on the PBD broadcast, saying, questioning October the 7th. Now, I'm not doing that, but Charlie said, and he's right. I've been to Israel multiple times. I've been there 4 times. The IDF is all along that border where October the 7th happened, and that night they were gone. They weren't there. Why? Was security lifted by the government as a pretext? He just asked that question. But asking that question put the entire Israeli government in an uproar, not to mention Mossad agents who will kill you before they'll look at you. And then he'd come out a couple of other times stating that he was no longer supporting Israel and what they were doing in Gaza any longer. He started questioning AIPAC and other things like that. And then just a month later, he's surgically taken out. Now, who's got the motive? Because Israel and AIPAC were starting to take heat from all over the U.S. public, and even Marjorie Taylor Greene and others in Congress are starting to question the power that the Israeli government has over our government, and starting to press for Israel to be held accountable, and the funding that we've been giving them not to just be given, them manipulating Congress, and which is all true. But Charlie had just come out and started discussing those things. And then just no more than a month later, Charlie is taken out. Motive? There's your motive. Method? They can do it. Opportunity? Charlie was sitting essentially in a fishbowl. He had a security detail around him, which you and I have alluded to earlier, is not going to stop an intelligence agency from taking you out. It's just going to ID you by the people that are around you. But they had the motive. They had the method to do it, sophisticated firearms techniques, and they had the opportunity. Charlie was sitting right out there in the open. That's just my opinion.
I'll tell you why, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. It's like, I'll tell you why I just think that it just wouldn't make sense for the Mossad to be behind this or Israel to be behind this. Why would the CIA allow this, number one? And number two, why would they target someone? You know, there's a lot of people that are anti-Israel, a lot more vocal than Charlie. Charlie was hinting that he might, what he said? He said 2 days ago, I think 2 days before he was killed, leaving no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. That was just a message. Maybe he was just letting out some steam. But that's very different to, you know, leaving the Israel cause versus someone like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. You've got, you know, Tucker's much bigger mic, who are a lot more vocal, and that's all they do is just kind of criticize U.S. foreign aid to Israel. And again, disclaimer, I was with Anna Kasparian yesterday, always put a disclaimer, these people don't hate Jews, they're critical of Israel. Any person that loves their country, want their country to do well, their country to have universal health insurance, and not another country they're giving aid to, but putting that and not spending trillions of dollars on foreign wars. Putting all that aside, because I'm very critical of the amount of influence Israel has on the US. I'm not even American, but when I see the world's biggest democracy get into so much debt, you know, my country, Australia, is a democracy and ally to the US, will suffer if the US falls. Yeah. But putting all that aside, the reason I think it doesn't make sense for Israel is Charlie Kirk was a friend of Trump. You're killing the friend of a president and people around the president, a friend of MAGA, a friend of many members of Congress. And yeah, so if you put these all together, and if it backfires on Israel, if it leaks that Israel was behind it, it will destroy U.S.-Israeli relations. It's just such a big risk relative to the reward that they get, that they're killing someone that might turn on them, or they might be less supportive, not be critical, but just less supportive. This is why I just think, like, I understand that these messages are sus, and Candace Owens keeps releasing information that still surprises me. Like, I didn't expect those messages to come out. And maybe you could kind of counter my point here, is that would the CIA be complicit in something like this, especially considering Charlie Kirk's being an American citizen, number one, and number two is, like, isn't there red lines for any foreign intelligence? Like, wouldn't there be a red line for the CIA? Like, hey, you could do anything you want to anyone, but not to an American citizen, and not to someone who's friends with the president.
There is no red line for the CIA. We'll start there. Secondly, you've got Mossad agents, I'm sure, that were incensed at Charlie's Kirk, and I'm not saying it's so, but Charlie's Kirk intimation that the Israel government may have been involved in October 7th. and you've got a Mossad agent that has the ability and the means that is incensed by that and wants him gone, that certainly could happen. Now, let's remember, too, that Charlie, and I admired him for this, Charlie came out and did a full panel on Epstein, the whole shebang, and brought Tucker Carlson in on that and discussed the Epstein case and the fact that it was being covered up and it was being hidden, to the point where President Trump himself called Charlie and told him to back off and drop it, and Charlie did. So that's just another piece in this whole puzzle as to why someone with the marksmanship ability would want Charlie taken out in such a sophisticated manner. So he had made some enemies. Now, would the CIA do this? I don't think the CIA was involved, although there's no red line with the CIA. They would do it. I didn't see Charlie as a threat to the CIA. Now, remember, please, the CIA and Mossad, and I worked with Mossad when I went over there with the deputy director to Israel. Mossad and the CIA, in many cases, are joined at the hip, like brother and sister in intelligence and in operations. But they're also enemies. Some of my biggest espionage cases were attempted Israeli penetrations of the CIA. But Mossad and the CIA work together on a lot of very deep cover operations.
Do you think that that Mossad? Look, one question that I still struggle to answer is how much influence Israel has over the U.S. Now, my explanation is, and I see you jumping in already, so you have a lot to say on that. So the way I look at it, from what I understand so far, and I'm still learning as I go, is that, obviously a lot of influential people and wealthy people in the US that are of Jewish heritage, and Jews just want a country of their own, especially after the massacres of World War II, the genocide of World War II. And so that, they have a connection to Israel. So even though they're American citizens, they also want their homeland to do well and to kind of destroy the threats around them. So that's a logical explanation. They're American citizens. Now, I still think they should, I think anyone that is donating money should have whatever cause they're fighting for should be a cause that's focused on America first. Guns, no guns, healthcare, no healthcare, but should be focused on America first. What you think is best for the US, not Israel. But that's not how the system works at the moment. So that's my understanding. Now, and obviously the lobbying groups, how well organized they are, it's been incredible. And what Israel's done over the last few decades is great for them. They've done really well. Look how they're the strongest military in the Middle East. While the US is heavily in debt. But the question I have for you, Kevin, is a lot of people are worried, and Epstein is used as one example, that the Mossad has a lot of information and on people of power in the US and are actively blackmailing people in power in the US. Now, I struggle to believe this because we're talking about the United States of America, the strongest military in the world, the strongest economy in the world, the strongest intelligence in the world. You don't blackmail the US. You could, fight the US. You could trick the US. You could trick them into a war in Afghanistan and weaken the US. You can spread them thin across Ukraine and the Middle East and South China Sea and drag them into all these different wars. But you cannot blackmail America or American politicians or American the director of the CIA or the FBI. Am I too naive?
Sure you can. Of course you can. And I've been a big supporter of Israel for years, and I've been there 4 times. And as a matter of fact, I went there when I was a CIA officer on official duties, and the CIA and Israel and Mossad were very close. I was there. But the issue is, would the Mossad blackmail somebody in the United States? The answer to that question is yes, they would, as the CIA would blackmail some other political figure in this country or another one. And I just tweeted this out 4 days ago. People need to understand there's something called the Masada complex, been part of Israel's doctrine since its inception. Now, Masada was a group of Jewish resistors that withheld the Romans up on the top of this flat mountain and kind of made themselves a little fortress there, with the Roman soldiers encamped around them, and it was certain death for them to resist that. And they all hunkered down. And as the Roman soldiers came up to Masada, they all died as martyrs and heroes. Well, part of Israel's doctrine is the Masada complex, where they will defend and protect Israel, even to Israel's own demise, whatever it takes. That's how Israel thinks. That's how Mossad thinks. So they will do anything to protect Israel and its safety. because of what they've been through, obviously, the Holocaust and all these horrible things. Israel will do anything. And Mossad, we think the CIA has no morals. Even the CIA has some constraints. Mossad has no constraints. So we can't, as human beings, we want to believe the best. And sometimes that can be a weakness or a mistake. I mean, it's a good trait, but it can be a mistake. That Israel will do anything. They will blackmail anyone they have to, including a U.S. politician, for the support of Israel.
How do you compare the relationship between U.S. intelligence and, let's say, Mossad compared to, let's say, the FSB of Russia or Chinese intelligence or Saudi intelligence? Which one is a bigger threat to the U.S. in your opinion? Which one's more powerful? And more importantly, the question I want to ask is, we're talking about having ethics at the CIA. But I want to, a counter argument to that. Wouldn't ethics make the CIA weaker? You talked about the Mossad has less ethics than the CIA. Maybe isn't that why the Mossad is scarier to some than the CIA, than most other intelligence, maybe second to the CIA? So
Sure.
then if based on that argument, for the protection of the United States, if other intelligence services also don't have Russia, China, Saudi, all these different countries, Russia, China, rivals to the US, don't have ethics, wouldn't ethics of the CIA make the US weaker?
No, not necessarily. I did operations where I lied and I stole, and I actually got an award for collecting human intelligence for the sake of my country. Now, I'm a person of faith, and empirically, that's unethical. In that case, I was doing in the defense of democracy. So ethics, they're bendable in some cases. I'm not saying that that's a perfect world, but they are. Now, in terms of intelligence threats, number one is China. Number one, and it has been for 30 years. I had espionage cases when I was in the counter-espionage group. China was all over us, all over our business, our industry. They are the number one intelligence threat to us, to the CIA, to our national security, no doubt. And
How powerful are they?
They are extremely powerful. Their technology in terms of intelligence, they have agents all through the United States. The only reason that they haven't moved on the U.S. now is to do so would result in the devastation of their own economy. So they're trying to do it slowly with the BRICS and other things, and
Move on the US as in what exactly? Weaken the US through different means?
weaken the U.S. dollar with the BRICS. They're abandoning the U.S. dollar.